Hey, this is Jeff with Word for Today, and the word for today is believe. I wanted to say doubt, but really the word is believe. But I'll have to admit, I really felt like an entire phrase came, which is stop doubting and believe. So since the show is word for today, we'll just use the word believe. But stop doubting and believe is the entire phrase. And I've been kind of hanging out in the Gospel of John on and off. And I like to be in the Gospels, especially during the time of Easter and all that. And it's been a few weeks after Easter now. But it's a great story and great reminders. Not every Gospel shares the exact same things, especially the Gospel of John. Everyone knows the Gospel of John is very unique, and it shares things that you don't read in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Not that that makes Matthew, Mark, and Luke any less of a gospel. It just means that the Gospel of John's unique. The story is that when Jesus was resurrected, came out of the tomb, and then the disciples and the women, Mary especially, and even some of the other people that were keeping the tomb, nobody knew where the body was, and all the clothes were strangely folded in nice, as if Jesus' body never was in there. Could the Shroud of Turin be that? What do you think? Regardless, it's very interesting that both Peter and John saw the tomb empty. Now Joseph of Arimathea, who was also a secret Christian, this was his tomb. He had bought it. And people have thought, well, maybe he's the one who took the body. But the thing is, he just provided the money for Rome, for Pilate, for the governor or prefect actually, to put a bunch of guards. So Roman guards and a big 3,000 pound stone were rolled in front of the thing. So this thing was at least a ton, if not more. It might have weighed several tons. That size of a stone. So how does someone just roll those away? Plus, having done that play many times as a passion play, I produced them several times. We always had a fake cave and a stone that was supposed to be rolled away. And when you make these stones, they have to be pretty big, at least 6 feet tall. You can imagine how heavy this thing was. There's no way somebody can move that from the inside of the tomb. Now on the outside, we always had helpers that were, quote, costume guys that were dressed like the guards. But there's no way that a person inside the tomb could move that at all. If it was made out of anything heavier than, wood, and it was maybe an inch thick, a plank, maybe you could roll that from inside the tomb. Now, of course, it'd be much easier on the outside, but remember, Jesus didn't have a lot of help here. Nobody rolled that stone away. Either it was miraculously moved or angels came and took the form of men and moved it. Either way, it was rolled off to the right. Jesus is gone. We've got the grave closed. Most people believe that Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus, who we are told were the ones that were there to bury the body of Jesus, they probably went and picked all that up and kept it and saved it, I would think. We don't know for sure, though. But what's amazing is all these guys, the disciples, came back. Now, it says here in John 20, don't go to it now, but in John 20, you can look this up later, verse 25, Thomas, who was one of the 12 disciples, Apostle Thomas, was not with them. So he did not see the sighting where all these people, 20, 30 people had seen the risen Jesus. And so the disciples come back and they see Thomas and they go, hey, you got to go see the Lord. And he's like, what? And Thomas says something that I relate to. I think maybe you might too. And he says, hey, you know what? Are you guys out of your mind? I mean, you're sitting here telling me the guy that we watched, the entire religious leadership, entire Roman leadership, they gave him capital punishment. We saw him die on a cross. Not only that, they stabbed him after he was dead, and then they buried his body and put it in a tomb, and you're sitting here telling me you've seen him resurrected walking around? This is nuts. Okay, guys? Really, you shouldn't believe this unless you understand how miraculous this is. I mean, the whole life of Jesus is miraculous. The whole entire idea is miraculous. So if you have a problem with miracles, either stop believing at all, or what can't you believe, right? But here's Thomas, and he goes, unless I put my hand into his hands, my finger into his hand, or into his side, where his other wound was, I will not believe. Sometimes we go through things. Sometimes I go through things even now, and even though I know all these miracles Jesus has done, all the miracles he's done for me, all the miracles he's done for all my friends over the years, over the decades, and still I come up to a problem in present day, and I have a problem sometimes believing. Am I the only one, or can you relate? I don't know why we do that. I guess it's a human nature, and this message is for me too. Stop doubting and believe. After all the things he's done, after all the things he's shown us. But Jesus loves Thomas. He knows he wasn't there. So Jesus decided to come. They had a meeting. They were eating some fish, just the disciples. And Jesus appears. And Thomas is like, what? But he still isn't saying anything. He's like, and Jesus says, touch my side. Touch my wound. Touch my hands. So not only did Thomas see, but he got to touch to make sure that these sores were actually from Jesus. They're the same sores that he saw from a distance the Romans inflict on Jesus in his body up to the point of his crucifixion and death. And so what was Thomas's answer? My Lord and my God. My Lord and my God. He believed after that. Church history experts tell us that India eventually was visited by a certain Thomas. And the whole South India, and I've been there at least once on a mission trip. When you go there, especially Madras, in the southern area of India, there's a lot of St. Thomas this, St. Thomas that. There's Catholic churches named St. Thomas. There's St. Thomas Academy. There's St. Thomas Orphanage. There's St. Thomas this and that. All these different ministries and or churches and or Christian buildings. And I asked somebody, what? I didn't know. I assumed this was did Thomas come to India? And they said, yeah, we believe he did, yeah. So Thomas eventually arrives as an older person, of course, all the way to India. After decades earlier, he first, as a young man, put his hand to the side of Jesus' body, resurrected, put his hand into the place where Jesus was nailed, the spikes where they went in, and said, my Lord and my God. It's just mind-blowing, isn't it? Most scholars believe that Thomas was killed for his faith towards the end of his life in India, but he was willing to live his whole life, even knowing that he could be persecuted and killed like all the other disciples, but he was willing to die for this whole thing. So if you think this stuff is too crazy to be real, then really, why are you even celebrating Christmas? So I tell Christians all the time, have you ever celebrated Christmas one time? Yeah, oh sure, yeah, I had Christmas with my kid. Okay, well then we've already established then that you are a believer in crazy miracles of ridiculous nature and sphere and size, because you believe that God came into a Virgin Mary and impregnated, and then Jesus was born from that. You already believe that. You celebrate that. So we've already established that you believe in crazy miracles. So now we're just talking about, the detail, the fine tuning, the fine details. That's a fact, right? So anyway, now, like I said, I'm talking boldly today because I'm trying to encourage you and but this is a message for me as well, is I need to stop doubting and believe. So I'm going to start doing that today, and I hope you do the same. And I hope this word blessed you, and we'll see you next time. God bless.